Now joining us live to tell us more is former editor-in-chief of AP of Europe, West Asia, and the African region, joining us live from Tel Aviv. Mr. Perry, when it comes down to what we're seeing as far as Trump's stance that is essentially shifting with regards to Turkey, how do you believe this will play out in the sense that once Turkey essentially gets access to these jets, will they take a heightened stance with regards to the war with Iran if that were to continue as well? What more can you tell us?
I believe that this is a terrible mistake that would undermine the very effectiveness of the F-35 jets that Trump is proposing basically to sell to Turkey. We're talking here about a plane that is meant to evade radar, specifically Russian radar. Turkey is a client state of Russia, having bought the F-400 air defense systems, and as such, they will be able to provide Russia with the secrets to identifying F-35 aircraft. And the next time the U.S., for example, tries to control the skies over Iran, which also has Russian air defense systems, it may find their planes being shot out of the sky. This is reckless and absurd and represents just the most irresponsible manifestation of Trump's fondness for authoritarians. He likes that Erdogan is strong. He praised him again today for being strong, by which we mean that he jails judges and journalists and opponents in general. Turkey now ranks 160 something out of about 180 countries on Reporters Without Borders Freedom of the Press Index. Turkey's a real massive problem for the NATO alliance because it's a country that's gone authoritarian in an alliance that is meant to protect the democratic world. And instead of nudging them back towards normalcy, Trump is lavishing praise on Erdogan and proposing to sell him weapons that basically endanger America's superiority in the skies.
Mr. Perry, please stay with us. I'd like to invite into the discussion now as well Eric Lem-Kooley, international affairs commentator, joining us live from Atlanta. Eric, thank you so much for joining us here on NewsX World. When it comes down to the situation that Dan Perry just now described with regards to Turkey, what's your stance on what Mr. Perry mentioned? Tell us more.
Well, I think you can look at this several different ways. I call it unorthodox. I don't know if I'm going to call it reckless. The problem with the major media, especially in the United States, is we're so used to doing things the old-fashioned way, catering to Europe, catering to all these countries that have been ripping us off all these years. President Trump has done quite the opposite. President Trump has stood on American soil, on American ground, with American backing, without having a bunch of help from everybody. And he's looking at new allies. He's looking at new deals to work with people. And it's the same thing. If Russia and Ukraine ever get this situation with that war under control, we will probably see President Trump offer Russia some kind of concessions. There's nothing wrong with bringing these countries into the open markets. As everyone seems probably knows, is that the United States is the largest arms dealer in the world.
Mr. Perry, when it comes down to what we just saw and heard with regards to President Donald Trump, and of course the fact that Italy did not take part with regards to the U.S. and their attacks on Iran, do you believe that when it comes down to Trump and this argument that I'd like to propose, essentially his stance can change from time to time? And do you believe that the relationship between Italy and the U.S. might be forever fractured, or is this just a little stop or a little a mini fracture, so to speak? What more can you tell us, Mr. Perry?
Nothing is forever, and Trump will be gone in short order. And I wouldn't overstate the importance of Trump's likes and dislikes and opinions about who's a nice person. It is also vulgar and infantile that the blood curdles, honestly, to think that this is the person representing the United States on the global stage. This doctored photo of Melania looking at him with goo-goo eyes like she desires him personally. I mean, honestly, what can you say? There's a question about whether the American people want this to be their posture on the global stage. To the issue at hand, yeah, Italy, I believe, in my own assessment, was short-sighted along with the rest of the Europeans and not more robustly supporting the U.S. effort against Iran. But we do see in hindsight that that entire project was misbegotten because the U.S. had no plan for the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz. Perhaps Maloney understood this from the beginning. On the other hand, perhaps she contributed to the problem by refusing to present a united front against Iran by the Western Alliance. So I do understand Trump's frustration with Italy and with the Europeans in general over this issue, for sure. But his handling of the matter, his presentation of the relationship with Italy, which is what you're asking about, is grotesque. It's like something out of a kindergarten.
Right. Mr. Perry, please stay with us. We'll be back with you shortly. I'd also like to bring into the discussion now Eric Lem-Kooley, international affairs commentator, joining us live from Atlanta. Mr. Lem-Kooley, when it comes down to what Mr. Perry mentioned, and of course your own analysis on the situation as well, what do you make of the way President Trump handled Italy's absence from the attacks or cooperation with the United States on Iran? Please.
I mean, the way President Trump presents himself on the national stage is it's going to be a 50-50. Either you like it or you don't like it. Personally, I prefer to finally see somebody stand their ground. I think President Trump does a good job of taking over every room that he's in, and that's when you're the leader of the free world. That's what you're supposed to do. He does a good job of demanding control. For people who have their hand out for American taxpayer dollars a lot, you should be giving President Trump the control of the room.
What do you believe is in store past these military assets sales with regards to the U.S. and Turkey? Do you believe that there might be more instances where both of these nations can come together as far as trade is concerned? What do you believe is up next? Tell us more.
Yeah, I think if the U.S. sells F-35s to Turkey, that could open the door for a much more robust military economic relationship for sure. Trump basically wants to sell things to people, and he has a personal sympathy for elected authoritarians because he wants to be one himself. This is part and parcel of America unburdening itself completely of all the values that have driven bipartisan American consensus for most of the country's existence and all of its existence as a global power for the last century or slightly more. America led the global alliance of democracies, the free world essentially. Since World War II, America built a global infrastructure that is rules-based and democracy-oriented and freedom-oriented for over 80 years, and Trump is the first president of the U.S. to abandon that completely. My fellow panelist seems to admire that Trump controls the room with his bluster and never-ending jackhammer lies and nonsense, but honestly, this has created such a diminution of America's capital around the world, and I live abroad, and I have, in the past 2 months, been at conferences, geopolitical conferences in 7 or 8 countries around the EMEA region, and I can tell you that the world is horrified that America has totally abdicated its position as a leader of the free world. And Trump admires dictators, and when he's not lavishing praise on Erdogan, an elected dictator, he's preferring Putin over Zelensky, pretending that Zelensky's a dictator and not Putin, and pretending like Putin had a reason to attack Ukraine. It is all blood curdling. It is a complete abandonment of America's ideals, and it should be happening. America's 250th anniversary is, and I say this as an American citizen, a disgrace.
Mr. Perry, please stay with us. We'll be back with you shortly. Now joining us in this discussion as well is Eric Lem-Kooley, international affairs commentator, joining us live from Atlanta. Mr. Lem-Kooley, when it comes down to what we can see as far as relationships or relations between Turkey and the U.S. are concerned as well, I'd like to ask you essentially the same or similar question. What can we expect? Do you have any insights on what's next between these two nations past these F-35 sales, please?
I think we're going to see this is a building block. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a big building block, and F-35 is kind of a serious thing to sell to somebody. However, I do think that they're going to create some kind of a system of trade that's going to escalate to take power away from other regions. The problem that a lot of the Europeans and a lot of Americans who don't understand, they the issue is the regimes are changing, things are changing. The American pushover system is changing. This is not a very popular concession, as most countries are used to us just writing checks, and that's not going to happen anymore. At least not during this administration, and hopefully not for the next few administrations. The ideology of America's just here to save the world and cut checks, that ideology is over. People have to do their fair share. And that's what a lot of the global leaders are struggling with right now, is the fact that they are going to have to do their fair share. They're going to have to invest in their own issues. So that's where some of these problems are. President Trump is just highlighting them and bringing that potential relationship to Turkey. It's hard to tell what that's going to look like, but I do feel like President Trump has some kind of framework put together for that that's yet to be seen.
May I respond?
We do have Mr. Perry joining us again in the discussion. Mr. Perry, please, why not?
Eric is right that Trump is right that Europe needs to pay for its own defense, and the need to meet the target, and 5% of GDP spent on defense is a decent target. There's no argument there, and the Europeans are actually catching up quickly because they figured out that America's abandoned them more or less. But that's not really what they have a problem with. I haven't met too many people that actually say America should cut checks. That's not the issue. They wanted America to be the leader of the free world, to continue to do that, and they're observing Trump preferring dictators. Erdogan on one hand, Putin on the other. Next, he'll be praising China when they attack Taiwan. This is a very major problem. The universe is now out of balance, and I would not diminish the importance of America standing for some values, and the complete abandonment of American values, the complete indifference to our democratic allies, the systematic demeaning of America's allies, the idea that America can actually threaten to invade Denmark, because that is what attacking Greenland was all about, is mind-numbing. And as for Turkey, yes. Turkey is a hostile nation to Israel. So what a NATO country defines Israel as a blight upon the world and an entity that should be destroyed. I think we need to take that into account when we give them F-35 jets, eliminating Israel's strategic advantage.
Mr. Perry, please stay with us. Thank you very much for your time, Lem Koule. Now, next up, we have some breaking news coming in. The United Nations has condemned racist remarks made by a Paraguayan lawmaker targeting France football star Kylian Mbappe, calling the comments despicable and dehumanizing. UN Human Rights Office spokesperson Tamim Al-Khitan said the remarks were deeply concerning, but warned that such incidents are not isolated. He said reports of racist behavior during the FIFA World Cup 2026 reflect a broader problem affecting football and sports worldwide. The comments came after Paraguayan Senator Celeste Amarilla faced backlash for remarks directed at Mbappe following Paraguay's defeat to France in the World Cup knockout stage. Mbappe responded by condemning the statements and rejecting what he described as racism and hatred. The French Football Federation has also criticized the remarks and said it is pursuing legal action. The UN statement adds to growing international condemnation over racism in sport and calls for stronger action against discrimination. Now joining us live to shed some light on this is Dan Perry, former editor-in-chief of AP of Europe, West Asia, and the African region, joining us live from Tel Aviv. Mr. Perry, slightly different story here compared to the U.S. and Turkey, but what's your take on, when it comes down to digital infrastructure, for example, how individuals can easily condemn another individual just by typing on their phone? Is this a problem of sorts that essentially we need to try and stop, just so that when it comes down to public figures or sports players in this instance, they are not condemned further? Tell us more.
Well, the current digital environment has constituted a complete democratization of discourse, and the gatekeepers of yore are gone, and basically any idiot or any racist can publish to the entirety of humanity, and this obviously creates a situation where we can take the measure of humanity in its current state, and that measure is not particularly pretty. The question at hand, if to be practical, is not condemning racism, because obviously, yeah, we condemn racism. It's whether the social media platforms, which are the conduit for this toxicity, should be held accountable for content that they carry across the planet. And moreover, even if you don't think they should be, even if you think that the social media platforms are analogous to a microphone, and you're not going to sue the microphone company for Hitler making an anti-Semitic speech, fine. There is a question of the algorithms, and their algorithms purposely prioritize hatred, xenophobia, extremism, radicalism, lies, because they engage more. And we've allowed them to do this. And I think we might consider no longer allowing this, because just because it's profitable to amplify lies doesn't mean that it should be allowed. There's a reason why regulations exist. And unless you're a total libertarian that thinks there should be no regulation and poison should be sold in hot dogs if it was more profitable, unless you're that way, then this is a prime test of humanity's willingness to find a solution to something that is really undermining civilization.
Right. Mr. Perry, thank you very much for those insights and for joining us once more.